Welcome to this episode of the Discourse Collective, which marks our first animated video. Today we will investigate what it means to live a good moral life. We will join two brothers in their very separate and different attempts to live a good moral life. As you'll see, they come to two very different conclusions about what effect their attempts had. So sit back and enjoy a good moral life. There were two brothers named Michael and David. They were very close to their wise father. Sadly, their father died when they were very young, leaving them with only one piece of advice: live a good moral life. Michael, the eldest, took the advice to heart. He read his father's writings and studied everything his father had written long and hard, seeking to understand what it meant to live a good life. He believed that his father's writings held the key to a moral life, and he lived accordingly, following the teachings and principles that he had learned. Where the teachings called for compassion, he showed great and merciful kindness. When it called for anger or destruction, so furious was the action of Michael that the very earth cowed before him. His path never deviated from the teachings that his father had left behind. David, on the other hand, took a different approach. He believed his father's advice was a call to experience life in all of its diversity. He travelled the world, talked to people from different cultures and backgrounds, and immersed himself in different ways of living. He talked with princes and robbers. He worked with his hands and his mind. He considered every situation from its own unique perspective of what good meant in that specific case. He believed that this was the only way to understand what it meant to live a good moral life. As they grew older, the brothers' paths diverged even further. Michael became a respected scholar, publishing books and lecturing on morality and ethics. He believed he had discovered the true path to a moral life, which lay in his father's teachings. On the other hand, David became a wanderer, moving from place to place and helping those in need. He believed the key to a moral life lay in compassion, empathy, and action, which can only be learned through experience. Years passed, and the brothers grew old. One day they met again, and they spoke of their lives and their beliefs and everything that they had learned. Michael was proud of his accomplishments, but could not help feeling a sense of emptiness. He realized that his life had been spent studying the words of others, and that he had never truly lived. He had advanced a great many conversations of morals and living a moral life, but he didn't really have any frame of reference to apply it to the real world. David, on the other hand, was filled with joy and contentment. He had seen the world, experienced its joys and sorrows, and made a difference in the lives of countless people. However, he was left wondering if he hadn't simply been dragged from pillar to post with each person that he'd spoken to, simply explaining what was important to them from their own perspective. As they talked, they both realized their father's advice had been far more complicated than they had first thought. Living a good life is not just a matter of following rules or discovering a universal moral code, they considered. Nor was it about doing whatever you thought was right in the eyes of others. Perhaps it was more about finding meaning and purpose in one's own life and finding a way to positively impact the world. Neither could really be sure. Ultimately, they could not agree who had lived a more moral life. David had not simply followed the teachings of others, but had actively sought to understand and engage with the world around him. He had lived a life of trying to understand how morals take shape in the real world, and had made life-changing differences in the pursuit of helping others. Michael realized that following his father's set of moral rules had allowed him to cut a strong path through life, with no doubt or fear that what he was doing was wrong. But he could not help but consider the idea that true morality was not about following a universal moral code that's handed down by an authority figure, but about finding one's own path and positively impacting the world. And so, the two brothers parted ways, each with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of what it meant to live a good moral life. So, living a good moral life seems such a simple idea. But how one sets about that is a very difficult question. If I dedicate my life to science and invent a cure for a disease that saves tens of thousands of people, am I a better moral person than perhaps, let's say, a doctor who only saves 500? Is saving a life a morally good act at all? Is the outcome or the intent what makes the difference to whether an action is moral or not? If I invent a terrible poison at the behest of an evil dictator, which is later found to cure cancer because I managed to design it using the resources of a dictator to be both poison and a cure, were my actions moral or immoral? Is creating something beautiful morally better than creating something ugly? Let me give you an example. Live Aid in the 80s sought to raise money, and it did very well, much more than £50 million directly, and then much more than that indirectly. However, sadly, much of that money allowed the Ethiopian government to implement a brutal resettlement program that may have killed up to 100,000 people. Save some, kill some. Undoubtedly, the aim of Geldof, Major, Sting and others was a pure one, but the results were far muddier than anyone expected. I've linked to that information further below. The moral of this story: life is complicated. There is no black and white when it comes to morals. Absolutists might decry this. Thou shalt not kill, they may say. Well, that's true, unless a person with a gun breaks into a school and you have the means to stop them. Suddenly, thou shalt not kill needs an appending unless they deserved it. So, how do you live a moral life? Well, that really does depend on your moral structure. If you place that moral structure in a higher authority, then you have an absolute scale to judge yourself on. But is the moral structure good because the authority demands it? Or does the authority demand it because it is good? So, play by your own rules and judge yourself, but watch out. It's easy to lose your way. Stalin thought that what he was doing was the right thing, as he caused millions of deaths of people. So after you're gone, will your life said to have lived in a moral way? Well, that is going to depend on who you ask. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Discourse Collective. If you would like to help us out by ticking the like and subscribe button underneath there, that would be fantastic. You'll find lots of information to the sources that we've used for this episode below in the description as well. And we'll see you next time on the Discourse Collective. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. If you would like to get involved with the discourse, please do let us know. Drop us an email, hit us up on social media, and tell us what you feel, what you think, or if you feel you've got some ideas you would like to contribute yourself. Alternatively, if you would like to help pay for this video and future videos, please do visit our Patreon page. As well as helping us out hugely, you actually get access to some really cool behind-the-scenes content. I'll see you next time on the Discourse Collective.